Napoleon Bonaparte has definitely been a polarizing figure in history. So in today's video, we're going to have a discussion about some of the good things he did and some of the bad things he did, and let you as the audience decide. Napoleon's history is very vast, so I'm going to select a few things that were good for him and then a few things that were bad for him. Full disclosure, I mostly consider Napoleon to be a good figure in history, and I'll provide my reasons why. I totally understand that in today's situation, a lot of people apply today's thinking to the people in the past or events in the past. I want to say that people change, politics change, everything changes. So when it comes to the discussion of Napoleon, I want to view Napoleon in his period of time and see how it has affected the present day. I am in no way whitewashing history and saying that he is totally blameless and he is a great person and not looking at any of his faults. I totally am. So, with that, I hope you enjoyed this video and enjoy the discussion. I think it's good to go over the bad things first about Napoleon, and I have 6 points I want to share. The first bad thing Napoleon did was the use of secret police. Fouché, the head of the secret police, did many bad things. Arrested people randomly, imprisoned them, executed them, and of course, it was against human rights. It's also fair to mention that other monarchs in that time, and even prior to that, were also using secret police. In relation to secret police and the illegal imprisonment of people, we go to one thing that is considered quite bad for Napoleon, which was the arrest and execution of the Duke of Enghien. To make it simple, the Duke was a member of the Bourbon dynasty that was kicked out by the French people. So Napoleon thought that the Duke would come, kick out Napoleon, and basically bring back the old dynasty. Because of that thought, they tried him and then eventually executed him. Unfortunately, the Duke was completely innocent. He had no plans of doing this at all, and I believe he was arrested outside of French territorial borders. So that's two things that Napoleon did that was not good towards the Duke of Enghien. Since we mentioned execution, the next thing I want to talk about is something that is really bad for Napoleon. Many people may not know, Napoleon actually invaded Egypt and the greater Middle East because he was trying to divert the war into a different theater and to divert British resources and also attack the Mamelukes, who were under the authority of the Ottomans. And Napoleon fought many battles in Egypt. So there was a specific battle where he attacked a place called Jaffa, and basically he had a lot of prisoners, like thousands of prisoners. This is what Napoleon said. He had to execute these prisoners. I think it was over like 2,000 prisoners. He executed them because he said they didn't have enough resources to feed them. They didn't have enough soldiers to guard them, and he was fearful that if he freed them that they would come back and fight him again. So he thought that killing them all would solve the problem. Now, of course, in the modern lens, that is extremely horrible because it's a war crime. I'm in no way condoning it, and in the period of Napoleon's time, that's a pretty horrible thing to do too. And in future battles, Napoleon did not execute his prisoners at all. And now that we mentioned war a little bit, I'm going to mention the next thing that Napoleon did that was not good. I will say Napoleon is not a warmonger to the extent that we're imagining warmongers are from the past and the present. Now, you may be thinking, I just said what Napoleon did. Now, actually, a lot of people don't realize is that Napoleon was mostly fighting defensive wars. A lot of the times, people were declaring war on Napoleon and France. Now, I think it's fair to say if you're being declared war upon, you have a right to defend yourself. Now, there are two situations where Napoleon directly attacked other countries. The first one was when he sent troops to Spain to basically kick out their Spanish monarchy and made the aristocracy vote his brother into becoming king. As we all know, that went horribly. That's called the Peninsular War. Tens of thousands of troops died, bogged them down, and Napoleon did not need to do that. The second attack was the invasion of Russia. Now, the reason he attacked Russia was because they broke the continental system, which was you could not trade with the British if you're on the European continent. I'm not debating if that was the right policy or not, but Russians broke it. Napoleon said, I'm just going to attack you. Now, I do think it's a bad thing because he was basically going to commit hundreds of thousands of soldiers to fight and die because they didn't follow his system, while at the same time, many other countries that were allied with Napoleon, they were also trading with the British. But you didn't see Napoleon attack them at all. And on top of that, he sent over 650,000 soldiers in the Grand Armée to attack Russia. They get brutally wiped out, and basically 600,000 people just died. That's the estimate, that they disappeared and they just died in the war. And after the Russian escape, that's pretty much the demise of Napoleon, because he lost so much manpower and it was hard for them to come back from that. Yeah, it's a horrible decision by Napoleon. It's actually considered a pretty bad thing. Now here comes the next problem. Napoleon placed his family all across Europe as kings, dukes, marrying other royal families and whatever. Now, I think that was a bad thing for Napoleon because that's going against the French Revolution and supposedly what Napoleon was championing, right? So, which was the freedom of people, the egalitarianism, the meritocracy of Europe, and instead he just places all his his family members across Europe, and it was basically like sheer nepotism. And by doing this, the local populations were not happy. They are Corsican, French Corsicans, and you're putting them in control of Italy, in some like German principalities, in Spain, and they don't know who they are. They're not loyal to this Napoleon upstart person, so that was not good. And also, ironically, he placed some of his generals as kings. The most famous one is Bernadotte, who became the king of Sweden, and actually he went against Napoleon a few years after the Russian invasion. You had populations that weren't happy, and then you had generals who controlled nations who you thought you had influence over, and they fought against you. Very bad. Now, after summarizing all these different bad things, I'm going to go to the thing that's probably the worst thing of Napoleon's history, which is the reinstatement of slavery in Haiti. Now, a lot of people don't know this. Haiti was a former French colony in the Caribbean. Now, of course, it was a slave colony, and amazingly enough, the local populace actually rose against slavery and kicked out the French authorities. Remember I said about the French Revolution? About egalitarianism, meritocracy, about freedom of rights of all men, right? Napoleon reinstated slavery. He reinstated it because he wanted Haiti to be a cash cow again for him to earn money, use the money to fight wars in Europe. Because Haiti went so poorly, he sent 50,000 soldiers to fight in Haiti to stop the former slaves from rebelling again. And basically, tons of soldiers died, the French lost, and Napoleon burned a ton of money. That's why he sold Louisiana to the Americans. So these are the bad things I wanted to mention about Napoleon. You could say that his ego was too big. He was too arrogant. He didn't fully believe in certain ideals. All fair criticisms. So I hope you get a good understanding of what I consider to be pretty bad things Napoleon did in his reign. Now we get to the things where I think they are good. When I say good, I mean there is an actual long-lasting effect from it. I'm not saying long-lasting effect as in, oh, he reinstated slavery in Haiti, and Haiti still has slavery. I'm not saying that. It's going to be a little different. I'm just going to list them out and talk a little bit about each topic. This is the only one where I consider to be not so positive, but there is a lasting effect that definitely has ramifications in the present day, which is Napoleon revolutionized warfare. Now, maybe a lot of you don't know, Napoleon was famous for his artillery usage. He was a master of artillery, and on top of that, he was a master of troop movements, troops formations during battles. He basically revolutionized how wars were fought. So if you look at the mass amount of infantry and line formation, different formations moving around simultaneously, cannon fire all being shot at the same time, that basically was a new style of warfare. For example, if you look at the American Civil War, which was almost like 50 years later, they were still fighting like that. Another one's the Crimean War. They were still fighting like that. That was in the 1850s, I think, all copying the Napoleonic warfare style. I'm not saying warfare is good or it's a positive impact. I'm just saying that there's a lasting impact where it's still relevant. So as I said earlier about him being called a warmonger, Napoleon actually fought mostly defensive wars. I think that's actually a good thing for his image because most people think, oh, he always declared war, he always fought, he always did this. So basically, he fought 7 different coalitions. So that's considered 7 different little mini wars, all during the Napoleonic era. Now, 5 of the 7 coalitions, they were declaring war upon France. Most of the time, it was the British declaring war, or they were giving money to other people to declare war on France. Him being classified as a warmonger was the Brits and the Allies eventually won the war. But like I just told you, that's not the case. The next thing is kind of a small thing, but I think it's worth mentioning. So, when it comes to modern day Paris, I've never been to Paris. I've only read about Paris. A lot of the modern places you go to, the palaces, the avenues, the bridges you see, a lot of it was planned by Napoleon. And with what I was just saying about Napoleon making modern Paris, a lot of people don't know this. The Louvre Museum, that was set up by Napoleon. The Louvre before was a palace. Before it was a place where French aristocracy lived. French king would sometimes go there, but Napoleon made the Louvre into a museum. He didn't make the pyramid thing, but like basically the modern idea of the Louvre being this grand, amazing museum, that was Napoleon. Now, another super famous landmark in Paris is the Arc de Triomphe. I might be mispronouncing that, sorry. That was planned by Napoleon. It was completed after his death, but it was planned by him. Now, Apparently, they said that if you go inside Arc de Triomphe, and basically before, I don't know now, but before, they would have the names of all dead French soldiers that fought in the Napoleonic Wars. You have to understand, like, Napoleon planned all of this for Paris, for France too. And on top of that, he also modernized a lot of French cities in across France. Even though he wasn't French, he knew that he had to make France a certain kind of image globally, I'd say. So the next thing, I'm trying to merge 2 points together. So the first thing I want to say was he basically created France as a very strong, powerful national image. And people were very proud to be French. They were very proud that France was so strong. By having this kind of belief in your own country being this strong, and it was the most powerful country in the continent, and it gave this feeling of, I'm proud to be French. I'm proud of my country. So in many ways, you could say that Napoleon, with the help of French Revolution, helped create the idea of nationalism. Now, I'm not saying it's all him. I'm sure people don't realize this, but when Napoleon went across Europe, fighting wars and eventually taking over certain places, and a lot of those times he created new countries, territories, lands that kind of encompass modern day borders of certain countries. He created something called the Confederation of the Rhine, which is kind of like a mini Germany. He created the Cisalpine Republic in Italy, which was encompassing northern Italy. So basically, he established all these different territories and republics across Europe, and they all had some kind of national identity. They were proud to be of this one certain group. So let's just say they were proud to be Northern Italians. They were proud to be these Germanic peoples all united together. And also, though it never happened, Napoleon actually promised Polish people that he would recreate Poland. You could say that, oh, he was just pretending to get their support and using them. Okay, fine, but he still promised it, right? Actually, one of his best marshals was named Poniatowski, and he was a great marshal that fought for Napoleon and really believed in the idea of a future Poland. Now, when Napoleon was on the descending, unfortunately, a lot of these places, these republics and lands, they actually fought against Napoleon. They had this nationalistic fervor where they believed they were their own people and they had their own destiny. And a lot of it was carried through by the French Revolution, which is giving them rights and having these beliefs where you don't have to rely upon a certain random monarch. After these monarchs came back into power, a lot of these places also decided to have another revolution, and it was the revolutions of 1848, where a lot of these modern day countries are now formed. A lot of people don't realize this. Italy was formed around that time. Germany came in around 1871, 1872. So after these revolutions, new countries began to form, and definitely it was very much connected to what Napoleon was trying to do by establishing these places like the Confederation of the Rhine, Cisalpine Republic, or promising a modern day Poland. There's a lot of connection with what he was doing prior with those republics and the modern day countries we see now. So the final positive thing I want to say about Napoleon was the set of laws that he created for France, and they were called the Code Napoleon or the Napoleonic Code. So the code basically set up laws that made everything more equal for everybody. It removed the class system where there was the clergy, there was the aristocracy, there was the peasants, there was the common man. He simplified administrative divisions. He got rid of the feudal system, like I said earlier. He got rid of peasantry and serfdom. He even legalized divorce. Now, people probably know he divorced his wife, Josephine, and married somebody else. The most important thing about the Napoleonic Code is that basically all the places he went across in Europe, he established the Napoleonic Code there. So the countries, the republics that all were under the French influence, they all used the Napoleonic Code. Funnily enough, when Napoleon died and was gone, most of these places still use the Napoleonic Code. So if that doesn't show you kind of positive influence where a law is made over 200 years ago and it's still being used in some way and in some form in the present day, I don't know what to say. I believe it was Romania in 2011 where they finally stopped using the Napoleonic Code, where they kind of modernized things. It just shows the testament of these laws, that how well they were maintained and how well they were still being applied to the present day. So I would say the Napoleonic Code was the best thing that Napoleon left from his legacy. That laws are still used to this day, they're still applied to this day, and it has a lasting effect. The Napoleonic era lasted about 20 years. So it's very hard to make a comprehensive video, but I tried my best. I understand this video is very quick and it's hard to basically encompass everything, the good and the bad. So I did my best, and I'm not trying to cause a political firestorm in the chat where people are like applying modern political thinking what happened in the past. I'm just offering my opinion on what I think made Napoleon good and what I think made him bad, but more so good. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do enjoy it, please like, subscribe, and share. I plan on making more of these videos, and it was quite fun. So have a nice day. See you guys. Peace.